Welcome back to Raíces de Hacienda. Today's episode is called Why We're Here, and our special guest today is Ernesto Fonseca, CEO of Hacienda Community Development Corporation. We're here to talk about the origin and the mission of Hacienda told through a leader's journey, how one dream for affordable housing grew into a multifaceted community movement. Welcome, Ernesto.
Thank you very much, everyone. Happy to be here.
Welcome to episode 3 of Raíces de Hacienda. Today's episode is called Why We're Here, where we go back to the beginning, the vision, the challenges, and the passion that sparked Hacienda's journey. I'm Sebastian Bishop from Hacienda, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Jules, Juan, and Isaac.
Hi, thanks, Sebastian. I'm Jules Morehouse, and I'm especially excited for this episode. We get to hear the story of Hacienda through the eyes of our CEO, Ernesto. This is the story of how one dream for affordable housing grew into a community-wide movement, one that touches thousands of lives each year.
And I am Juan Vildosola, and we'll explore the moments that shaped Hacienda's mission, the milestones that define our growth, and the personal journey of the leadership that's guided us along the way. So today we welcome you, the CEO of Hacienda CDC, to the Raíces of Hacienda podcast.
Thank you very much, everyone. And again, happy to be here.
Ernesto, how about you start by introducing yourself and telling us how long you've been leading Hacienda?
Happy to. My name again is Ernesto Fonseca, Chief Executive for Hacienda CDC. I've been with Hacienda for 8 years and a half. Soon, at the beginning of next year, is going to be 9. I came to Hacienda because a good friend of mine, his name is Kurt Krieger, invited me to apply. He was not part of Hacienda, but he was the director of the Portland Housing Bureau. So be careful what you ask for because you may get it. So it's been 8 years and a half, and it's been the honor of my life really to do this work. You know, I had been working on the private sector before that. I had done work on academia as well as government, but I had never done any real, community development work until I arrived to Portland. And it's definitely been a journey. So it's been 8.5 years and counting.
And Ernesto, where did you grow up? And is there a memory that you think of where it shaped you or prepared you for the type of work that you do today?
There's not one memory that will shape, I don't think, myself or anybody, but it's just a sequence of events, through everybody's journeys and lives that help people or not, to get to where they are, depending if you're paying attention, I would say. I was born and raised in a small town back then called Querétaro City in central Mexico. I was born to a loving set of parents, my mom Margarita and my dad Ernesto, in a super poor community. It was a slum community, no streets, no water, no sewer, no electricity, none of that. And our house was a house made of tar paper, with no concrete floors, no nothing. We were squatters, really, I would say that that was perhaps, the most significant part of my life that I didn't understand at all. But as I kept getting older, 54 now, many of those memories continued to be with me. And I do think that perhaps, those experiences from back then helped me to focus on social housing. But I have to make a quick, pause on this comment. This didn't mean that I wasn't happy or that I felt poor. In fact, I didn't know that I was poor until I learned that other people had a lot more than we did. But that didn't make a difference really in my life. We never were hungry. Yes, we had to put a bunch of buckets every time it was raining because there were, leaky roof was just dripping all the time. I remember losing my one toy when it was raining so much that it got really muddy inside the house. So I was looking for my patrol car, one of those cars that crash and then they reverse and crash, reverse, and then they keep going forward. I don't know what happened. But that's one of the saddest stories that I have, of my childhood. I had one toy and I lost it. My parents couldn't buy me another one. But those housing conditions, while they were definitely memorable, perhaps, and this is just a big perhaps, right, taught me to appreciate housing in a deeper way. So I would say if I had to pick one single experience, that will teach me that housing was important would be when I lost my patrol car to a flooding inside my house. So,
How did you feel when you realized that you were poor? You said you didn't know you were when you were a child, but when you did find that out, what were the feelings that you had?
oh man. I come from a very mixed family, but most of my family are very indigenous. In Mexico, there is class, and typically class goes related with race, and whiter people had a little more than we did, and so on. For indigenous people, were always the poorest ones. There was a sincere, feeling of shame of who I was. It was a feeling of being worth a little less than the rest. And that shame, of my own family, that shame of my own roots, and that shame of my own history was, I don't know, a little bit of a weight. Now I have shame about having shame back then, because I am proud of who I was, and I am proud of who I am because of what I was. At the end of the day, we're the result of our past, but only we really pay attention to our past. And I don't have any of those issues anymore, other than crude memories of how I felt at the time. My parents, my mom's side of the family, they were indigenous dancers. And they had a group of those dancers that, participated in, they were hired for a number of things, whether it was, Independence Day, Christmas celebrations, in downtown. So they would put themselves together and let's go, so you are wearing feathers and, very, very little indigenous attire, and conchas, which is little shells, that you put on your feet, when you're dancing. I literally would hide behind people so anybody that may be there that was in my elementary school would see me. Now I speak very fondly, about those times that I didn't get to enjoy because they looked down on us, a lot of the time. We were entertainment and we were just weird, human beings. Mm-hmm. But not anymore. No more. I treasure those pictures. I treasure those images. I treasure those memories. And all of those little things that traumatized me in the past really helped me to get to where I am today, I think. Mm-hmm. So,
and then, what happened? How did you come to the U.S.? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh man, I don't know how much time do we have, but look, my father, my mom has always been the family unifier. The relentless, traditional Mexican mom that is always fighting for the family to stick together, to continue communicating, and so on and forth. On the other side, my father has always been the relentless, stoic, quiet worker. And he was, without a doubt, one of those persons that wasn't ever satisfied with just what he had. So he became a handyman when I was little. He was a plumber. He had a bicycle. He would always carry his little toolbox, and I would go with him sometimes on the bicycle. And then my brother, when he was a little older, we started working when we were 12, and we used to help him to do plumbing, to do carpet, to install wallpaper, to do paint jobs. That was mainly what we did. And little by little, he he put together his own little company. So he had a real construction company by the time I was already a teenager. And that was fantastic to see. I mean, I saw my father, from on the money side, from riding his bike, taking us to kindergarten on his bicycle along with my uncle. We were so hurt all the time. Our pots, jumping on those streets with no roads, all rocks. But those memories never go away. But at the same time, I saw them that they were working and working and working. By the time I am 18, my dad is doing well. My family is doing just fine. We had a few dozen, construction workers, while my dad did in, his small company. And things were looking great. I was a really awkward kid when I was growing up. I was really blind, legally speaking. So I didn't really... I didn't have a lot of social life. My life was just one friend, and that's all I did. But I was really good at one thing. I was really good at academics. When I was 6 years of age, I started playing the violin. And at school, I was a straight A student. I never had girlfriends or nothing else, but I was good at, following directions from my dad and my mom, playing the violin, and doing good in school. As I keep moving forward, I become the youngest violin player for the chamber orchestra of my state. Then I am picked up and I go and play for the symphony in California when I am 16 years of age. Come back to Mexico, try med school, didn't work out. At the end of the day, ended up studying architecture, and I am doing just fine. Doing already housing, which is the first project that I did. My dad, his construction company, they were doing warehouses for big factory shops. I was doing little casitas. So I did 8 apartments for a friend of my dad. So, it was a good connection right there. But then in 1994, the big Mexican crisis happens. I am barely 24 years of age. I am getting off the ground. But I don't see a path forward for me to really succeed. I worked for the Secretary of Health after my dad lost a bunch of jobs and construction was stale. And I couldn't even sustain myself with that salary. I couldn't pay for my own rent. I couldn't pay for anything, so I was living with my parents still. By the time I am 28, I am tired. The family is broke again. And I have to go. So I left to Wisconsin. To follow my brother, my little brother, who was finishing high school in the U.S. And I started working as a server at the Olive Garden, as a cook at Applebee's, and also as a painter at the factory shop. That's one of the other experiences that I had. I was working with these guys that were prisoners that had day relief, for work because they were behaving. And I didn't know that. One day I was painting, these rims. There was a chain, and the rims, for these giant trucks, come down. So you're on that side, I am on this side. You have a pin gun, I have a pin gun. So when the chain keeps going down with a big rim, you spray them, you spray them on the side, I on this side, and then they keep moving forward. And one day, finally, the chain stopped for a moment. There was something that broke. So we had to fix it. So we had to chat. And this guy says, so how are you? My name is this and that. And my name is Ernesto. Good to meet you. We've been working for months together. But they never let us, not even a break. It was in such great shape back then. And so we started talking, and I'm like, where do you live? I'm like, well, I live in the, in the county and the state prison. Like, why? Like, I've been there for 25 years. Like, what happened? Well, when I was younger, I got into a fight, and I took the gun of this cop, and I shot him and killed him. Like, oh my God. I was like, I gotta be careful. He was like, no, that's in the past, I'm a different person, and this coming out, helps me to relax, and prison is home. it was really, really interesting to hear that story. I couldn't stop talking about it when I got home. But that's what I did for a number of years. Then I took care of young disabled men.
And when you were doing that, were you like sending money back home, or what was like your purpose there?
My purpose there was to survive, to have a job. And yes, all of us were sending money home, back to Mexico. But after that, I got tired working that place. I got into a brawl at the Olive Garden and I was fired. So I started working at the taking care of young disabled people. One of them had cerebral palsy, the other one had severe cerebral palsy, and the other one had autism. So I lived with them. I was their stay-home dad, as they call it. And finally, one day I met my partner, my now wife, Susan. She ended up getting a job in Phoenix as a community organizer, and I follow. She helped me apply for Arizona State University for a grad program. I already had one graduate degree in construction from the University of Guadalajara and a degree in architecture. And when I was working in the United States, Susan said, why don't you do something related to? I'm like, I don't know the system. I don't know anything. So she helped me apply for ASU. I was accepted. I did a second master's and a PhD. And I was working in affordable housing. I was doing design build. I was deported in 2004 to Mexico. So I really didn't have a lot of ability to have a real job. So I started my own little business of my own. But Susan helped me to get organized. Well, she got organized and got letter support and got letters of this and that. And then got hold of Congressman Raul Grijalva, who died early this year. And he's the one that helped me with the humanitarian visa. At that point, we got married. We started processing my paperwork. And in 2007, I became a resident. 2007, and on July 4th, 2011, I became a citizen. At that time, I had already developed my own company. I was doing real estate development for Maricopa County. I was doing my own development. I did about 1,200, homes by then, and it was just fantastic. When I became a citizen on July 4th, 2011. I immediately signed up to run for office, and I signed up to run for Tempe City Council the week after. I lost 2 campaigns for Tempe City Council, but I didn't lose anything at all. What I won is a lot of influence and friends and recognition, and eventually I became the chair for the State Democratic Party Affirmative Action. And that also gave me a lot of access to many other things. So while I was doing politics, I was doing business as well, and I was already having a family. My dad had been born in 2005, my son in 2008, and I was just all over the place. So it's been a real exhausting, journey in the United States, but I think it's worth it. I don't regret a bit any of it. Being part of the State Democratic Party, being part of in Arizona, being part of the political landscape in the state of Oregon, I think gave us the ability to understand what the priorities of the state are, so we can feel those priorities, through the work that we do in Hacienda. So.
And I want to ask you, what would you say is your leadership style, and how do you think that's been influenced by your heritage and everything you've been through?
That's a really difficult question for me to assess. I would like to think that I am a compassionate leader that likes to lead with facts on hand and with understanding of people. But I am one person that gets anxious and desperate when things are not done. I do like people that self-drive themselves, that we can understand each other, what is the objective, and then you do it, right? Then come back and report back on results. That would be my ideal dream, right? In which we all know exactly what we need to accomplish, what we need to do, and then you just go and do it. And yes, call me if you have questions, call me. If you need support, I have somebody to call for sure. I would say in this self-reflection, my management style is more of a, working with high performers that can drive themselves, so I can do the advocacy and fundraise, for anything, find new projects, that sort of thing.
Did your early childhood experiences teach you grit?
I think we had no choice. I think grit is something that is expected, especially when you come from a loving mother and a strict father. You got to do it. There's no thing. There's no questions. You have to do what you have to do. Remember Saturdays, my dad would knock on our door really hard when we had doors, when I was around 12, 13. And he would say, you guys look like you want something to do, so get up. You need to clean the shed. Like, what? It's 7 a.m. It's Saturday. I am 12. What's wrong with you? I mean, I didn't say any of those things, but I'm like, sí, papá.
Ya levántate, órale.
Yes. So I think that helps you, to really value life in a different way. I'm not saying that is the right way to do it, but there's got to be some balance. I gave my kids a lot of leeway, and sometimes I feel like I should have been a little more strict. So.
When you think about home and belonging, what comes to mind? What images, what feelings, sounds?
For me, home and belonging is where friends and family live. Where you're accepted, where you can walk and get on the streets and smile and not be afraid. To me, that's belonging. I don't have to have an extensive social life. I just need to feel safe, in that space, and loved to some extent. Not everybody loves you, but some of us do.
Great. What first inspired? So we're going to talk more about the history of Hacienda now. What first inspired the founding of Hacienda, and what was the need that you were trying to meet when you joined?
I think it is only fair for me to talk a little bit about the two wonderful women and their partners and friends that made all of this happen. In the late 80s, a woman called Clara Padilla, who lives in New Mexico right now, she was leading some programming at Multnomah County. And a good friend of hers, who later became a Multnomah County commissioner, Maria Rojo Estefi, was also, a really relentless Latina. Some of the old-time Latinas that were living here and were trying to do their jobs. Clara Padilla was on the social service side, and she always would come to locations like Colleague, where a lot of Latinos used to be living, and other communities, right? But all within Multnomah County. She acknowledged that the interaction between the Sugar Shack, the former strip club across the street from Hacienda headquarters, now Las Adelitas, was a very problematic, asset or liability in that community. So there was a lot of prostitution, there was a lot of domestic violence, there was a lot of gun violence that was interacting with what used to be the Galaxy apartments and the Colimano apartments, now Villa de Clara Vista. And across the street, now those don't exist. We redeveloped those already. With that said, she set her eyes into buying what is Villa Clara Vista that was owned by a slumlord in California. So she was, she met with one day with Maria Rojo, and Maria Rojo said, "So what do you want to do, Clara?" I'm like, "Well, we should raise money to buy this property and then start an organization to do this." Back then, in order to start a non-profit organization would take months, if not years, with IRS to get your 501c3 designation. But these really smart women said, there's this project, it's called Project Northwest, Voter Registration Northwest. It has been dormant, for a long time. It's already 501c3. All we have to do is change the name. So they filed for a name change around the 1990s. the very early days of the 1990s. And they filed for a name called Hacienda CDC, but they didn't do anything with it. In 1992, they finally incorporated the organization with the state as well, not just with the IRS, but also with the state. And they offer this person, so Dan, Steffi, and Baltasar Ortiz. Baltasar Ortiz used to be an infrastructure builder, so he built roads, and Dan Steffi was a developer. Dan Steffi is the spouse of Maria Rojo, and Baltasar Ortiz was just a friend of theirs. So they asked Baltasar, can you help us? If we manage to get some money for this, can you help us administrate this property? He said yes. And then they talked to Dan, and Dan, we need to buy this thing, so you're the developer, what do we do? So they identified the person that owned this thing, the slumlord in California. They went to California, made an offer. This person was happy to get rid of that asset, and they sold it. And Hacienda CDC was really born in 1992, on March 1992, to become what it is today. A few years later, the same women that I mentioned, where they got organized and they said, housing is definitely not enough. So they started, providing services. So they brought Youth and Family Services, one of the oldest programs within the organization. Some quick facts that you probably guys don't know. They also started a little group, for Latinos to get together, for Latinos to get to know each other, and so on and so forth. And that little group was called, anybody? Latino Network. So that's, that same group of women, got together to start what is now known as Latino Network. So you can thank Hacienda, for that. But not only that, later on, Hacienda also became concerned about, climate justice and environmental justice and all of those things. So guess what? They said, we should start something called Verde Northwest. So they started Verde Northwest, Alan Hipólito within Hacienda, and then we let it go. So Hacienda let go of Verde. So Alan became the first executive director of Verde Northwest. Hacienda also started it, a little company called Hacienda Community Credit Union that eventually emerged with Point West. And all of these little Hacienda facts are something that really fascinates me, that really got under my skin in a good way, that helped me understand that this could be a good fit. Even though I had never led a nonprofit organization, this organization was a doer, was an organization that had that DNA of entrepreneurship, of being a serial social entrepreneur, of starting one company after the other. And most of them are doing fantastically well. So what else did I have to think about this, right? When Kirk Krieger, gave me a call and said, there's this organization that is hiring, you should apply, I will support your application. I applied, 2016. They didn't hire me. But close to the end of 2016, they called me back again and they said the person that was hired didn't work out. Would you like to apply again? I'm like, okay. Just so you guys know, I'm not looking for a job, but I will apply. And I did apply, and here we are. Here we are.
Can you share a story from your early days at Hacienda, maybe a breakthrough moment?
For me, coming to Hacienda, I had really one clear objective. They told me Hacienda was a developer. We really were not developers. We had some property for sure, but that's being a property owner and a property manager. We were not developing a single thing. We didn't have a department. We didn't have a staff. We didn't have any of that. So for me, the greatest breakthrough will always be the Sugar Shack, now Las Adelitas. Before Las Adelitas became what it is today, I had already studied that project quite a bit. And the board of directors, our board now, they told me, this is a priority. We need to make this happen. When in 2015, when the coalition of Verde, Habitat, and Hacienda purchased the Sugar Shack, well, they had a bunch of ideas in mind, from a McDonald's, a Dollar Tree, a laughing planning, packaging facility, and so on and so forth. None of those, things is stuff that I know how to do. I mean, I'm sure I can figure it out, but it's not it wasn't part of my business, right? I do housing. So market housing, custom homes, and affordable housing. That was my niche. That was my world, in Arizona. And that's the world that I brought with me, right? So I brought a lot of friends along the way, for me to make this happen. So here we are with the Sugar Shack, and I'm entertaining all of these ideas from the partners. I'm like, finally, there's nothing I can do with that. So I spent about 6 months working with them on this. Until one day they said, we really need to come up with something because our loan with Craft 3 is going to mature and it's going to balloon and we need to pay it. And it's $2 million. So $2.7 million. So what are we going to do? Like, well, I could buy you guys out, and then we're good. You are out of the water and I keep the project and I keep exploring new ideas. Habitat said, we're happy to do this. Because they are the ones that were carrying the greatest liability. And Verde, back then, that was being led by Alan and Tony DeFalco, now Latin Network, said, yeah, if you can figure it out, we're happy to support any efforts. They gave me only one condition. Please keep our architect, Alex Salazar. I'm like, I'm happy to keep Alex. And that was the beginning of something else. I sent a text to the former chief executive of RDF. Hey, Tommy, I need about $3 million, to buy a property. And he asked me, so what is it? It's a housing project. Is this the story behind this? Can you help me out? He was, you got it. Just make it work, because otherwise I take it back. So he lent me $3.2 million on the spot. Good friend and great allies. And that's one of the things that I tell people, right? When a person lends you that kind of money without underwriting, without even checking your finances, that's because they trust you. And what the business that I've been trying to build behind myself, it's based on trust, resilience, and getting things done. And Tommy said, you know what? People are going to give you a hard time, on that market. So let me come over. So we did a meet and greet, and we did this meet and greet at Andina, and in Andina said, Tommy, here's the money for Sugar Shack, by the way, and RDF, $1 billion corporation, supports all of your efforts. And the rest is history. We made that happen. That was a breakthrough project that has changed the face of Hacienda. Look, I did other projects before that. But if I were to pick one significant project that I am proud of all of them, but this one is special, is the Sugar Shack, now Las Adelitas.
And I really like what you were saying, like telling us the story of all the organizations that came from Hacienda. As a person that works at Hacienda, it really makes me, I didn't know all of that, but I'm now kind of really proud of being part of this organization that helped so many other, create so many others that are actively helping the community right now.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll do it again. If you guys have an idea, we can be your parent company for a while until you have to leave, because we don't.
Yeah, we have ideas.
We cannot be good at everything. They need to have their own leaders, right?
What's a story or encounter with a resident that has stayed with you through the years?
I have met so many residents, especially some of them that are relentless. I don't even know how they do it. Some of them get a hold of my cell phone. Some of them know where I live. I have no clue, but I have met them all. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing in my house? I literally had this person that showed up to my house with flowers and said, Don Ernesto, I need your help. This has been going on and somebody gave me your address. Like, oh, okay. Can you show me something that you're real? So I called, our friends at Cascade to confirm that this person was in fact a resident. That was memorable. But there is one person, Efrain Gonzalez. This older gentleman, I met him probably in 2019. His daughter came over to me. I'm sorry, Efrain Rojas. His daughter came over to me and he said, Ernesto, I have reached out to CDC. I have reached out to other organizations, housing organizations, and all of them, have a really long waiting list, and they are. And my dad is very low income, and he likes his absolute independence, and he needs a place to stay. At that point, that woman was the director of El Programa Hispano, who's dedicated to supporting women that go through domestic violence and other things like that. So, to me, it was not necessarily an obligation, but a duty for us to support those leaders that are really sacrificing themselves, into that space. My own parents, when they moved here 2 years ago, they lived in affordable housing until I bought that other house. And I was looking for that dream house, for me to be able to have my parents living with us. So living independently without living with us. And she was facing the same things, but she didn't have as much resources as I do. So she needed a place for her dad to stay. 89 years of age. No money. So I was like, you know what? Just give me a name and I will make it happen. Just keep in mind that I'm breaking the law again. Not the first time. No, I do believe that, people that are struggling with housing, people that are elderly, that have paid their dues, deserve the right to be housed, And I did house that man within a month. And he was living in Villa Clarovista. About a week later, after I housed him, he was leaning against my car in the parking lot. And he was waiting for me. And he was Don Ernesto. Like, okay, señor, how can I help you? My name is Efrain Rojas. I just want to thank you for supporting me with this effort and, helping me to get an apartment. I'm very grateful. And I would like to take you out for lunch. Okay, let's plan on that. When? I'm like, okay, Vanessa will get a hold of. No, dígame ahorita. Tell me right now. Okay, let's go and have some tacos at, I proposed going to Taqueria Santo Domingo. And he said, no, Ernesto, we have to go to a nice place. So I'm going to take you to Culver's. Elmer's. I'm like, okay, let's go to Elmer's. So he was known at Elmer's, as the older gentleman that was flirting with all of these servers, which was very cute. I was thankful for that experience. And then that experience became another experience and another experience. And every month we used to go out for lunch with him. Eventually, he kept getting older, and he was taken to the hospital multiple times. He was at St. Vincent in Beaverton. And I used to go there every day to play dominoes with him. They were from Colombia. So we used to play dominoes. I gave him a good domino set that I used to have from Puerto Rico. Eventually, he was taken to hospice. And he died when I was there. And his daughter couldn't make it until he was taken. So I had to stay with him until he was removed from his room. Yeah, that's one of the most impactful.
Thank you for sharing that. That's impactful. So, going on to
he left me a big present. He used to be a guitar player, so he left me his acoustic guitar.
Oh wow!
Yes.
What a gift!
And do you know how to play, or did you learn?
I know how to play guitar. Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I'm violin.
We should have asked you to brought it and play that.
I know exactly.
Those are different guitars.
I'll plug you in, yeah.
So moving on to talk about a little bit about leadership. Leadership can be a long road, but what's one "this is why I do this" moment that you've experienced?
In terms of leadership, or in terms of what we do?
Leadership.
The reason I am here is not because I am that good on anything, or because I am so great, or because I am good at academics. No one is. No one is good enough for them to do it all, or to do well on anything in life. Dean Kim, he was the dean of the Herbert Institute for Design and the Arts at Arizona State University. Brilliant, well-spoken man. Doing our commencement for I think it was my second master's. He said, in life nobody succeeds simply because they want to succeed. In life, people succeed because others want you to succeed. Mm-hmm. It is not enough for you to say, I want to be good, I want to be great, I want to have this job. No. Somebody has to open the door for you. Somebody has to pull you and say, what, you deserve this and I think you can do it, so come here and do it. And I am a strong believer of that. There is absolutely no doubt that in order for you to do something, you have to have somebody believe in you. I do believe not only in that, opening the door for others and paving the way for others, but in also mentoring consistently the next generation. The reason I teach, or used to teach, I'm having doubts whether I should come back to teaching or not. After 18 years, I decided to retire from teaching this year actually, January. I don't know if I come back to it or if I just needed a break. But mentoring, which is my way of doing it, and I do it with anybody that gets close to me and is persistent. If you give up, I give up faster than you do because I have other things to do. But if you stay on top of me, I will, share everything that I have to offer. I will open doors for you. I do believe strongly in opening the door and mentoring others to succeed. I think it is only fair. Not only because I had that experience that many believed in me, but because there is no other way. Mm-hmm. There is no way that you can get anywhere alone.
And you hold a lot of trust in the people you manage.
I do, my trust is yours until you lose it.
Yeah.
I don't take it from you.
So, kind of moving on to the measuring of success, how do you measure success beyond just the number of housing units built?
One of those complicated questions that I will try to answer.
Okay.
Success is a really relative term, right? For many, success is being happy, being at peace. For others, it's having food on their tables and a roof over their heads. For me, success in terms of the macro world means that we are increasing the independence of individuals for them to provide for themselves what they need and what they want. Depending on the social safety net, depending on affordable housing units, depending on social services, it is a good place for individuals to rely on until they find that development turning point in which they can be their own people. They can meet their own selves. They can manage their own time. For me, success is in economic independence. It's having housing. It's having the opportunity to say, I want this job or I want this other job. And I'm not taking it just because I need to pay a bill. For me, success in terms of the Latino community and other minority communities, including women, means that they are building more assets, more power, and bringing more equality to the greater landscape that we continue to dominate as males. That's what success means to me. And for me, personally speaking, success, it's part of being older. I'm 54. I do or die. That's what I was taught. And I understand that is not today's way of doing business. But I also know that those younger people that do or die will succeed tremendously because they will set themselves apart, from the crowds. I don't know any entrepreneur, young or old, that doesn't work day and night. And maybe that is our greatest asset and also our demise at some point. Because that's what we do. And that makes me happy and also exhausted.
Okay. Looking ahead, what is your vision for Hacienda in the next 10 years?
Do you ever watch this cartoon called Pinky and Cerebro?
Yeah, you want to dominar al mundo?
Conquer the world in a good way. I think in the next year, in the next 5 years, and then 10, our goal and my goal for the organization is to establish an open market in Washington and Idaho. There is an ever-increasing Latino population in those two states. And I don't believe in Hacienda staying where we are just because we're comfortable. I believe in Hacienda going to where Latino and minority communities are, so we can serve them where they are, so we can meet them where they are. And those markets are within our reach. They are within our region. And that is a place where we need to be with our services and our housing and our small business development capabilities. So that's where we're going to go. And that is going to require a lot of work. Those are two big states. One of them is very rural, Idaho. The other one is semi-rural with a lot of resources. So we'll see how these dynamics shape, what Hacienda could be or not. But I can tell you that we have the tools and the resources to make that happen. I see Hacienda doing a little bit less, so focusing a lot more on youth and family services and home ownership. And obviously, within youth and family services, education is one of the biggest tools that I want to bring to those communities. This, for example. And I'm going to tell you why. Because for lower income families, for lower income individuals, one of the easiest ways to gain access to assets, to success, to somewhat set the stones for upper economic mobility is education. There is no other tool that is more attainable to us than education. Do you want to win the lottery? Good luck with that. One, so many millions. Do you want to be the partner and entrepreneur on this and that? You will have to be lucky and work really hard, and it's probably not going to work the first time or the second time or the third time. It takes a lot of time, for you to do that. So education offers you one thing. Offers you the tools, for you to succeed and to have a career, and at the same time gives you more education for you to start a business. And that is something that no one, as my father said, can take away from you. Education is like your own soul. You can go to prison, and education will go with you. Somebody can impound your house and your car, but they cannot take away your education. You can die, and that education goes with you. No one can take away your education. So for Latinos, for minorities, and for anybody else, I would say that education is perhaps the one tool that will be perennial forever. It doesn't have to be college. It has to be just education.
Great. If you could send one message to our community and supporters, what would it be?
During these difficult times in history, and we will always have some of them, I want all of us to remember one thing. No one will be able to ever remove who we are, take or remove us from where we are. Like we said in Arizona, aquí estamos y no nos vamos. Y si nos echan, nos regresamos. So, pretty simple. The success of this country is tethered to the success of the Latino community. There is no success of this nation without Latinos, without Latinas, without Latinas. Nothing. We're the greatest and fastest growing single group of people in this nation, and also one of the fastest growing in terms of, biracial communities. I think that most people in the United States, the great and the vast majority of people in the United States, are loving, caring human beings that see not only that potential, but our contributions to this nation. And they are the ones that will help us to, come back to a moments of peace and recognition of this great community that we call our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When you think about the future, what role do you see Hacienda playing in shaping Portland and beyond housing landscape?
I think Hacienda's contribution is, yes, it is on the housing side, definitely, but we, Hacienda CDC, we are the only organization that offers a lot more than housing. I am a strong believer that housing by itself is just warehousing. Housing with services and robust, programs, can offer that exit that we always aim for, economic success. I do see Hacienda, at least under my leadership, and that will remain to be seen if the next person, whenever that time comes, will do the same. Hacienda has offered me the platform for me to be a thought leader within the state, for me to be able to help shape policy and bring new bills and laws that help not only Latinos, not only women, but many other communities, including low-income white communities. I do see Hacienda shaping how Oregon does business across the state. I do see Hacienda, recalibrating many of our laws in terms of, housing and funding for development and programming. And I can proudly tell you that I am one of the very few leaders in our field that has been able to do a lot of that work at the state level. So I do see Hacienda as a strong, thought leader, not just on housing, but in terms of policy, education, small business development, and overall community, success. So I hope we can continue doing that work, and I hope that whomever takes over my spot in the future can do that as well.
Thank you. We all hope that.
Well, thank you for joining us for today's episode, Why We're Here. Hearing Ernesto talk about your story, like your journey, everything that you've gone through, I think was very inspiring to me, and I honestly feel more appreciation for Hacienda and everything we do, knowing all the things that have been done in the past. And I think that all of our listeners can understand that what you said. I think one of the things I take with me is education is one of the most important thing. And to me also, the reason why I'm here is investing in the least fortunate and giving them all the tools that they could get to succeed in life. And that's what we do. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And for our listeners, just want to let y'all know, if you'd like to learn more about Hacienda's work and how we're building not just homes, but a movement, you can visit us at haciendacdc.org. Thank you.
And until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep building a future rooted in community. The podcast, Raíces de Hacienda, has the purpose to celebrate the voices, journeys, and cultural roots of the people who make Hacienda what it is. Through storytelling, we uplift the lived experiences of our staff, their triumphs, challenges, and deep ties to community and culture. Rooted in Latina traditions and values, this podcast is a space for authenticity, connection, and pride. By sharing our stories, we grow a collective narrative that honors identity, builds belonging, and reminds us that our voices are powerful tools for healing, reflection, and transformation.